And I really was intrigued by the fact that so many of the songs, and I want you to listen for this, so many of the songs assume that you're going through hell at that moment, right? And so many of the songs are like like basically helping you to survive whatever shitstorm life has thrown at you. You know, does anybody else notice that? Like there's always an assumption that if you black, you going through it, baby. You ain't gonna make it. You can barely get up this morning because life is so heavy and hard. And I don't want to live like that, man. I'm tired of that. I ain't trying to inherit the struggle, and I ain't trying to pass the struggle down. I really want my kids and grandkids to get up every day and say, "Oh my God, the world is a beautiful place, and life is so awesome. I've only got so much time on this earth. Let me maximize this. Oh my God, I'm living my passion. I'm living my dream. Life is so great. It is so awesome. The world is full of love and happiness." I mean, do you get what I'm saying? Like, do I sound uppity? Am I being an uppity Negro again? Because I believe that you can be happy, that you ain't got to always be coming out the mud all the time. I mean, really, seriously, I just think that's depressing as shit. I ain't gonna lie. That is not, that does not, it does not make me happy to imagine, that millions of our people, some of us, not all of us, but some of us feel like you can only relate to being black if you sad about something, or distressed or angry or hurt, like you ain't got to be angry and hurt all the time, man. Sometimes you can fight to control your destiny, and you can fight for the things you love, and for happiness, and I really just would think in general for like kids, because I'm dropping off the 14-year-old every morning at school, and I want her to go to school happy. I just want her to go to school, feeling good about life. I want her to feel good about my role as her bonus dad. She has a two dads, so she's lucky. It's like, well, instead of thinking of it like, well, you ain't got your daddy, so that makes you a typical black girl because black girls don't have no daddy. No, she's got a great daddy, and she's got two great daddies. And I say, that means that if any man ever mistreats you, you'll have two men that'll show up at his house and beat him up. So good for you. Aren't you blessed? Isn't your life wonderful, right? So my prayer for everybody, since I was listening to Kurt Franklin and I'm just thinking about praying and stuff, is that you are able to find the blessing in the middle of whatever your existence is. Because I do believe the blessing's there, but I also believe that there's opportunities to create that blessing for yourself. Can I get an amen? Can the church give me an amen, hallelujah, or praise the Lord, as Medea might say? All right. So with that said, let's hop into a couple of things I wanted to talk to you guys about. First off, this stock market is on fire right now. It is burning in a good way. The roof is on fire. Please don't get no water. Let that mother sucker burn. Right now, this stock market is up 400 points, and I fully expected this. This morning, when I was in the 5:30 a.m. club, I got up this morning and I went for my run. I only did 3 miles instead of the five that I wanted to do, but I'm getting better. It's getting easier, right? Just because practice and stuff. And then I was on my way to the gym. And one of the things I mentioned this morning on my Instagram, which is Dr. Boyce Finance, is I said, don't be surprised if the market starts to move upward as you get closer to the reopening of the government. Right. And so the downside of this government fiasco is that your politicians are really stupid, and they're also really selfish, and they're a bunch of arrogant bastards who are disconnected from the plight of the American people. But one benefit, though, for those who are canaries in the mine, those who have financial consciousness, is that stupid people do stupid things, and then sometimes they eventually reverse them. And stupid people are somewhat predictable sometimes. So these goofy people in Congress, they get in fights every year, and then one side gets mad at the other, and then they shut down the government. But you know that this too shall pass. When the government shutdown began, we knew that the shutdown was probably going to come to an end, which it did. And so, in the midst of the shutdown, because there was so much uncertainty, because it was just chaotic. It was this sort of artificially created chaos that was unnecessary. It led to a dip in stock. You remember that a couple weeks ago, everything was super cheap, and we were talking about it. And I said, well, I'm just going to buy the dip. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm buying the dip. Well, the minute they started to talk about reopening, the minute the Democrats decided to go ahead, eight of them anyway, eight of them, they're getting a lot of heat for making that decision. I'm not here to tell you how you should feel about that, but the minute they made that decision, I remember saying, okay, now we're going to start seeing this. So this is predictable. This is easy money. This is like money falling out of the sky. So I made the video this morning. I said, as they get closer to the shutdown, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a little momentum in the market, money being made. And then also when Trump finally signs the whatever bill that is to reopen everything, I believe that's when you're going to see, hooray, the government's open. And then the market will likely, there's no guarantees, right? I want to make this clear, but I wouldn't be surprised if the market just jumps up and says, okay, it's time to go up another 500 points, and that's money in your pocket. That's money in your pocket. That's where the money's at. The money is not at your job. The money is on your app. So go to your job, but get on your app on your way to your job. But I'm not talking about the gambling, the sports betting apps. Those are bad. Y'all noticed how the sports betting scandals have grown? Remember, I was telling you about that too. And here's the thing: it's the beginning. There's gonna be like just a reckoning. Like there's gonna be a point where they're gonna be like, oh my God, this is an infestation that has leaked all throughout sports. Because what they think they can do is they think they can kind of contain it. Like, oh, we're just gonna change a rule. Because I think they made a new rule where they said now you can't bet more than $200 on any given pitch because the betting has gotten so ridiculous that literally they let people bet on whether the next pitch is gonna be a ball or a strike. They call these prop bets. And let me tell you, if you're doing a lot of these prop bets, you are a complete sucker. You might need to go call Gamblers Anonymous because you shouldn't be betting on the color of the sneakers of your favorite player or whether or not the next shot is going to be, whether the free throw is going to go in or not, or whether or not the referee is going to blow the whistle in the next 30 seconds or not blow the whistle. I mean, come on, man. Stop that. Stop. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. That's not calculated risk. That's just you just being addicted to that dopamine rush that you get from gambling. And I can just tell you, I'm really passionate about this sports betting epidemic because it makes me so sad because you're going to ruin the lives of millions of young men whose lives are just beginning. These men are supposed to be husbands and fathers and stewards of the family wealth. They're supposed to be protectors of the kingdom, protectors of the empire. And if the protector of the empire has an addiction, whether it's drugs, gambling, or anything close to that, he is going to destroy that woman. He's going to destroy those kids. When I wrote my book, Financial Lovemaking, years ago when I was at Syracuse, I heard story after story of scenarios. In many cases, these were women because financial security is very important to women. Fellas, you need to understand this, that she's not really, I'm just here to tell you the truth. I don't think she's going to be as attracted to you if you are messing up the money. Ladies, tell me what you think. I think that when a man is not as sloppy with the money, you might say, baby, baby, please, and you're supposed to love me no matter what. I think that's unrealistic. When that insecurity hits and that financial trauma hits, it hits real deep. And in fact, I would argue that some women look at financial irresponsibility as worse than infidelity. Literally, I'm not saying that it's okay to do either one, but literally, like you could have like went out and slept with a couple of women versus like throwing away all the family wealth. You might be better off with the first crime as opposed to the second one, although all those crimes are inappropriate. But still, there's levels to this shit, if you know what I mean. So my point is to say that the gambling thing or the sports betting thing bothers me because these are young men and if you're coming into this relationship and you have these addictions and vices and issues and challenges, it's going to impact your personal financial security. It's going to impact your ability to provide security for others. What that might make some of the men do is say, well, I can't take care of a family, I can't take care of my kids, whatever, right? And kids will still be born for whatever reason, so these kids will be out here abandoned, and they'll be like, maybe I got to talk to a therapist about this. Maybe that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I had two daddies that had vices. Both of them were heroin addicts, my biological father and my stepfather that raised me. One walked away from the drugs, the other one couldn't walk away from the drugs, and the one that couldn't walk away, he wasn't the man that he could have been, right? So I would just say, just if you care, if this matters for you, tell your sons about this because ain't nobody really talking about this. And what's going to make the scandal even worse is that the media is not going to really address it properly because too many of these sports platforms that these men watch are all being financed by the sports betting companies. They all got the DraftKings ads up. They have the FanDuel ads up. So when millions of dollars are on the line, there what's happened is they've become as corrupt as the politicians. That's the issue. The politicians will never do right by the American people, in my opinion, because they're controlled by the capitalists who are at the top of the food chain. They're controlled by the shareholders. They're controlled by the corporations. So they're always going to do what the corporations want before they do what the American people want. That's how really unpopular stuff gets passed. Like, so for example, years ago, there were some senators, Joe Biden and some others, that were pushing through a bill to make it illegal for you to write your student loans off in a bankruptcy. Now, I want to ask y'all a simple question. Do you know? Give me a yes or no in the chat. Let me give me a yes or no. Do you know anybody in here? Is there anybody in this room who would go to Capitol Hill or write to your senator or protest and hold a march and rally asking your senators to make it illegal for you to write off student loans in your bankruptcy? Is there anybody in this room that would go to Capitol Hill and say, I demand that you make it so that when I get this debt, I can never get rid of it, that this debt's got to stick around like a STD and it's got to just stay with me forever, that I can't get rid of it ever. I'm going to be in financial jail. Who in the hell asked for that? You find me one American citizen who asked for that, and I'm gonna call you a damn liar. The company people didn't ask for that. Banks asked for that. Corporations asked for that because they wanted a backstop. They said, look, we got these suckers right where we want them. They're buried in debt, which means they're going to have to come to work for us and they're going to have to pay us a percentage of the money that they make from their jobs. That's great. Slavery is awesome. Slavery and addiction are the most profitable businesses you can be in. And addiction is just another type of slavery. They're just the same thing. You're just a slave to the dope. You're a slave to the addiction, to the gambling, whatever, right? So that's or social media, same thing. It's built on addiction. In case you know, go research it. They manipulate your dopamine levels deliberately, so you become addicted to the scrolling and all that. The addictive products are the best. In economics, they call that price inelasticity. That means basically people are going to want it no matter what. Even if you increase the price, they're going to still buy it. So that's what it is, right? So ultimately, the the people on Capitol Hill are controlled by the money. um, the people on in your sports media are controlled by the money. They ain't nothing but a bunch of lying ass suckers. You can't really confront DraftKings, you asshole. You can't. DraftKings will show up and they will bitch slap you and to the tune of $10 million. You got massive deals with these sports betting and they said we're gonna make sure we pay off everybody. They're the drug dealers who basically paid off every cop in the city, so you're not gonna get anything even resembling any fairness or justice or truth or anything like that. So basically, that's going to allow the epidemic to continuously get worse until it becomes such a national crisis that somehow, some way, there'll be a spillover effect, and they realize, oh my God, millions of American families are being ruined because we've been pushing gambling addiction to so many people, and then at some point they may do something because it'll be basically like the financial version of the fentanyl crisis. I mentioned that, and so ultimately, just just let me move on, man. This is making me mad. All right, so a couple things I want to mention also is I put together a list of I think that there are some banks that you may want to look at. Some of you, I don't know if any of you got my list of what I call Wall Street heavyweights. These are banking companies that I think you should maybe take a look at in terms of long-term investments. I'll send that out to you guys. Make sure you're on the text list for this class. If you're not on the text list for the class, text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948. I'll send that out probably tomorrow. And also I realized today I gotta write this down. I want to make a. I was thinking about data centers, and one of the things going on with data centers, with companies like CoreWeave, they had CoreWeave on one of the shows, and they were like, "How are things going?" They said they're going great. We have insatiable demand. They say, "Well, that's good." And they said, "But we have one problem." They said, "What's the problem?" The problem is that they said that we don't know how to get all the supplies to build the data centers. So one of the challenges that they're running into with AI is that they don't they have the demand demand. Like customers want it and they want all the compute and everything else. So they have a reason to buy chips and compute and everything. But the problem is that building data centers, basically these big buildings where all the compute happens, is there's a bottleneck there. There's a bottleneck on the energy supply. They have to be able to, the grid has to be able to handle all this energy demand. There's also a bottleneck in terms of just bricks and whatever else you need to build the data center, right? So on all the different supplies. So there's some companies that I made a list for as well that can allow you to invest in a way where you can benefit from this restricted supply and heavy demand. And so I'll put that together too. I'll call that maybe my data center list or something, because what you got to do is you got to look at not just where the money's being made, but also the back end of that, right? What does the supply chain look like? And so this supply chain is something that's really fascinating to me. I'm going to personally make massive investments in that area, and I'll share with you some of the things that come up. All right, so one thing I wanted to mention, I saw this article where Warren Buffett was talking about what's been going on with AI and the replacement of jobs. And so basically, you have Amazon that is replacing 600,000 warehouse roles with robots. But Warren Buffett, he actually makes the argument, which I think is quite legitimate, that you shouldn't panic. It doesn't mean that your life is over. Yes, jobs will disappear, but there are going to be other opportunities that will emerge. And so one thing that he compares it to is when they invented the tractor. And when they invented the tractor, they didn't need as many farm laborers. But what happened was that so jobs certainly disappeared, but then there were other jobs that were still related to the industry that were sort of built around the fact that the industry had become more efficient. So even as you have these efficiencies pop in, which they're not going to go away, and it's going to accelerate the economy, it's going to accelerate growth economically and otherwise. You will have other jobs that will emerge. So Warren Buffett says here, I'm reading this article on MSN. It says, as far back as 2019 shareholder meetings, Buffett claimed that people shouldn't be too worried about automation eliminating jobs in the years ahead. In his remarks, he likened the coming automation changes to a previous shift from using manual labor almost exclusively on farms to using the tractor. When the tractor came along, the new technology eliminated the need for many farm laborers. And in the last 200 years, most farm jobs have been lost. But even with enormous shifts, people remained employed because new opportunities opened up and would be farm workers jumped to fill the jobs in a changing economy. We find ways in this economy to employ more and more people, said Buffett. In a 2019 shareholder meeting on the subject of automation, he said, this economy works, it continues to work. I think that's somewhat debatable in the sense that it's hard to really make the argument that just sort of this reckless, relentless commitment to capitalism is beneficial across the board. It's certainly beneficial to those who are at the top of the food chain, people like yourselves, because most of you own stock. When you're a stockholder, you're pretty much the king of America to some extent because corporations kind of drive America, right? Really, we are, the United States of America, or we could call ourselves US Inc. or America Incorporated or the USA Incorporated because the corporations and the shareholders kind of control everything. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage you to own stock is because it puts you at the top of the food chain. If you're not sure how to own stock, and I want everybody to own stock, we have the Stock Market Club and we meet every Tuesday and we guide you on every step of the way. And you can join with your whole family, right? So feel free to go to drboycestockmarket.com. That's drboycestockmarket.com. So not only should you buy stock, but you should buy it consistently. And that has been the number one wealth driver in America. I'm going to, just in case you're wondering, I'm going to repeat that 85,000 times. So if you're new, just get used to me saying that over and over again because it's true. All right. And so ultimately, when you're talking about what's going on with this AI and everything else, one of the thoughts about AI that's really interesting, I really am intrigued. I'm really going to think about this a lot and try to see how this story ends. But people are starting to question Sam Altman and OpenAI. There's kind of like a dual narrative with OpenAI. So you have this company that is worth, hundreds of billions of dollars based on the value. I think they're $500 billion now based on investment valuations, and because everybody's is just dying to buy their shares. And but the problem is that they have these weird, really weird things happening, like They made $13 billion, but they've made like over 1.4, $1.5 trillion worth of financial commitments. And people are like, how are you going to pay $1.4 trillion worth of financial commitments when you only made 13 billion? And so far, the only thing we've seen is Chat GPT, which has gained subscribers. And then you have the Sora app, though, which is basically a money pit. Literally every time you use Sora to make videos, because sometimes I use it to make funny videos, like the one of me flying on the dragon and killing the cops. Or I don't kill cops. Let me say that differently. That's a bad one. My daddy was a cop. Blowing up the sons of bitches who tried to harm us on Black Wall Street. That's what I do with my dragon. So take that, white supremacy. And so Sora can do cool stuff like that, but the problem is that they're losing money every time that you do a video generation. So they're like, how are you gonna make money when you keep losing money? That doesn't make sense. Well, what their argument is, okay, so those who favor OpenAI and believe in the dream are saying, look, what they're going to do is they're going to gather a tremendous amount of market share and build out capacity to prepare for this massive amount of demand. And in the year 25, or sorry, 2030, which 5 years from now, that's when they're going to be profitable. They'll be profitable in 2030. That's a big leap of faith. That's pretty fantastic in terms of like, ooh, buddy, wow, 2030. Okay, so you're going to bleed money till 2030. All right, Sam Altman. Okay, you go, boy. Um, but Anthropic, a competitor, I think they're actually profitable now. So Anthropic is like, you ain't got to wait 5 years to start making money. Like we're actually profitable right now. And so there are people that are kind of questioning that model and saying maybe Sam Altman is kind of playing a game and this is going to be seen as a circus 5 years from now. They're going to look back and say, wow, why did anybody believe in this company? But here's the thing, there are so many smart people that have invested lots of money in this vision. But there are other people like Michael Burry, who wrote the book The Big Short, and quite a few others who said, oh no, this is a sucker's dream. This is not going to work out. And not only is this company going to struggle and just literally kill itself under the weight of all this debt and all these financial commitments, but they're going to bring down the whole economy with them. They're going to create this black hole effect where all the hyperscalers get impacted because they made deals with all these companies and all of them are going to get hit, including Nvidia and some of the most important companies in the economy. I don't know how that's going to play out. I've really thought about it really hard, and I've been like, I don't want to be so arrogant as to say that this is not going to work. I just don't. I don't believe in doing that. I think the best thing you can learn is how little you actually know, right? And I know a lot. This is what I did my dissertation on. But the first thing I really learned as a scholar is to be humble and understand that you don't know that very much. The universe of what you don't know compared to what you do know is like this, right? And so anybody who walks around like they know everything, that tells me that you don't know very much at all. Studies show that actually, that the people who know the least are the ones who claim to know the most because their universe of potential knowledge is really tiny. So it's easy to master something very tiny. So tiny-minded people are the ones who walk around as the know-it-alls. People that think expansively, which I hope that you'll consider doing, they tend to, be confident about what they know, but they're always learning something new because they know that there's a universe of things they don't understand yet. So I'm really trying to think about this, right? So I do think that participating in AI and investing in these companies is the right thing to do. I do believe that. I do believe there's a possibility that this bubble could burst, but it could be a little bit like Bitcoin. Like remember when Bitcoin if you go back to like 2015, 2016, that was when I think I first started talking about Bitcoin a lot more. I wasn't talking about in 2013, 2014. But by 2015, 2016, we were really talking Bitcoin. And it was super cheap at the time. And I was like, yeah, I think Bitcoin has a good shot. I think Bitcoin, I read a whole book about blockchain and everything. I said the technology is really good. There are people that believe in it. I think investing in Bitcoin is a good idea. But in between that time, in that last decade, you've seen Bitcoin literally just crash and burn right in front of you. And when it does crash and burn, you will typically hear typically people who don't invest at all. Usually the non-investors have the most to say about the dangers of investing, even though they've never experienced these things. And they were saying, this is crazy, this is stupid. I told you it was stupid. I told you, and I had to deal with that. I deal with people saying, but Boyce, Dr. Boyce, he pretend you claim to be a PhD. Here, how you gonna have a PhD and you told people that Bitcoin was a good investment, right? I get that a lot, right? Oh, you supposed to be a PhD, but you down stupid. Okay, thank you. but still, it was looking pretty bad. And then you saw Bitcoin kind of rise again, right? And then it crashed again. Then it started rising again. And so in a way, maybe the AI boom will be the same way. This is my point. So I think that there is a probably going to be like some sort of bubble bursting. Maybe we're ahead of our skis. Maybe things are breaking down a little bit. But if you have a long-term thesis, I think that where the gold is buried is in longer-term perspective. Jeff Bezos did a speech that I really liked, where he was talking about the importance of being able to practice looking out 7 years, having consciousness. He didn't call it financial consciousness, but that's what I was thinking because this is what we talk about every morning, 7 days a week. By the way, we do this every day because we need to make it a habit. What you do consistently is what you will become. So literally, financial consciousness. He said seeing 7 years out in the future instead of just two or three can make a big difference in your outcomes as an investor. It's very easy to beat your competitors if you're thinking long term, or it's very easy to build wealth if you can think long term. So practice thinking like 7 years in the future. And if you have kind of a 7 year commitment in your mind, then you won't be as rattled by things that happen in a given month or in a given year. You'll stick with the plan. So if I'm a believer in AI, I diversify, I buy a bunch of different assets. When they crash, I say, well, I still believe in AI. I still believe that this industry is going to be good. So I'm going to dollar cost average my way through this, right? So while everything's crashing and down, I'm going to keep buying and buying and buying. And then eventually, if things go the way I hope that they will, then I'll make money. You may not, though. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you plan, but you give yourself the best chance to win. And so this is what I would encourage you to consider doing. I think if you believe in the AI thing, then diversifying and investing in multiple companies is better than trying to pick the winner. So if OpenAI was publicly traded right now, I don't know if I'd want to own their stock. I would probably own it just because everybody else wanted to own it, and I would immediately sell options on it. I would probably sell options on the stock to all the people that were more enthusiastic than me, and I would buy put options on the stock to protect my investment. They call that a collar. You put a collar on the dog because the dog it might bite you. But I wouldn't own it because I really believe in that fundamental thesis. I do think Sam Altman could be wrong. I think that he may be going a little bit too far. But here's the crazy part. Here's another thing I wanted to mention that's interesting and crazy about it. So this week, Mayoshi San, who runs this thing called the Vision Fund. Somehow they gave this guy $100 billion and said go invest in stuff. And so he's really an interesting investor where he will have one conversation with the CEO and then put 10, $15 billion into their company, or he'll come to your company and say, I want to give you $5 billion to grow your business. And if you say no, then what he'll do is he'll say, okay, no problem. I'm going to give that money to your competitor and they're going to wipe you out. So it's kind of like some real gangster stuff in terms of how they do that. And so Mayoshi San, this guy I think he's done well enough that they've kept him in that role. He recently sold his stake in Nvidia. He had a $5 billion stake in Nvidia. He sold his Nvidia, and I said, "Oh man, that sucks because I'm invested in Nvidia. That's going to pull the stock down." But he said, "I'm not worried. It's not that I think Nvidia is not a good investment. It's that I think that OpenAI is a better investment." So he sold his stake in Nvidia. I think he sold $9 billion of his Verizon stake, and he took a bunch of that money. He put it into OpenAI. So with Sam Altman literally going around with 13 billion in revenue, making 1.5 trillion in commitments, which doesn't make sense to scale that for you. It's like imagine if somebody was making 13,000 a year, but they were committing a 1.4 million dollars in debt, basically. Like that would sound crazy. You're like, be like, what are you doing? You ridiculous crazy person. You can't pay $1.5 million in debt with your job at Burger King. Like that don't make Burger King don't pay that kind of money, right? But maybe they have a plan and a vision that's bigger than Burger King, and they say no, I'm just working at Burger King now. And just getting to know the system because I'm going to ultimately own 20 Burger Kings, right? So you can't buy OpenAI easily that I know of. I know that Robinhood is exploring the tokenization of privately held companies, which would open the door for us to own any company that's out there pretty much. They're trying the tokenization of assets, where they take physical assets and stock and everything and kind of make it into these tokens that you can buy, which gives you an asset that's correlated and connected to the value of that asset. That's going to be really, really big. A lot of banks are going to do it. Robinhood's going to do it. And so at some point, you will be able to own things like OpenAI. Right now, you can't. And I don't think the tokens would come with like voting rights and stuff like stock, but it's that's a big wave. So I'm really curious to see how this thing works out with OpenAI. I can say that if OpenAI were available for investment now, I'd probably pass. But I'm really, really curiously watching to see who's right about this because we know AI is big. They're big players in AI. Can they ultimately become what people think they're going to become, which is the next hyperscaler? So they believe OpenAI will become the next Facebook or the next Google or the next whatever, right? And I don't know if I believe that or not, to be honest with you. All right. So with that being said, let me give you a couple notes. Also, today I want to mention I just got video from the venue of the All Black National Convention, which is going to happen October 16th that weekend in Brooklyn. It's the Hyatt on the Hudson. That's where we're probably going to host everything. So the Hyatt on the Hudson, it's not quite downtown Brooklyn because downtown Brooklyn costs too much. So we said, okay, let's go to a place that's right near downtown Brooklyn that's still fancy. It's not no, we don't want to be sloppy. We like you. You guys are a little bit bougie, so we want to give you a curated experience where you get to feel fancy and stuff. And so the hotel's super nice, but yet it's affordable for families. And it's going to happen the weekend of October 16th. And that's where literally we bring together experts from all different backgrounds in our community to solve our problems. So this means we have everything from doctors and lawyers and scholars and teachers and financial analysts and just whatever it is, right? And the whole theme really honestly is just love, like putting ourselves first, loving each other, rooting for each other, connecting with each other, building with each other. But then also you learn a lot too. If your goal is to learn, you gonna learn today. So the All Black National Convention's happening in October. So you can get your passes early and at a discount now by going to allblacknationalconvention.com. There is a cap on the number of passes that we sell because we're not trying to have a big massive convention with thousands and thousands of people. We want an intimate experience with the right people with the right mindset who are truly serious about breaking generational curses. So allblacknationalconvention.com is the URL you can go to. All right. So I'm going to bounce on out of here. Also, don't forget tonight, we're doing Powernomics training. We're reading Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Dirty Little Secrets. We do this every Wednesday. We've been doing this for 7 years because we're serious about this. And tonight he's going to read. We're going to talk about the Rosewood Massacre. He has a section called "The Majority Should Protect the Minority." I don't know what that means, but we're going to learn. Blacks were double victims of the Holocaust. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Media routinely degraded blacks. Familiarity shows contempt, and they never get the word. So these titles are really cryptic. I don't know what he's going to talk about, but we're going to analyze this tonight because if you don't know your past, then you can't learn your future. All right. So you guys will hear from me later on today, especially those of you that are curious about the stock option stuff. I would definitely hit you up and answer your questions. And so if you want to join us, just make sure you're on the text list. I'll send out a link. Text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948. And if you want to learn about the convention, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. And the hotel is the Hyatt on the Hudson. That's where we're planning to host everything this year. All right. So have a good day. God bless you guys. Thank you guys for listening. And it was real. Peace out.